Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. Brian Hodge, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. So great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this chat. You are one of, we can say many. I'd say one of a very small handful of clients I like to point to as a, go look at Brian. Go look at Brian. Look at what Brian's doing. Brian's doing great things. But we haven't really had the chance to sit down and properly document what the heck it is you're actually doing. So I'm glad we've taken the time here to finally do it. Give people a quick introduction to kind of who you are, what you do, and a little, description of the business as it stands today.
Yeah. So thanks. And thanks so much. I really appreciate our relationship, our history. I get the privilege of serving about 14 different companies right now. Most of the revenue of my business comes through leadership development programs, which through the 90-day pipeline has helped me target specifically to construction, blue collar companies to help them develop their leaders. The other part of my business is strategic planning. And so it's really kind of nice because the two offerings complement each other. If I can get somebody in the door through one of those products, I can sell them the other one. And I'm very fortunate to have some longstanding clients, have more than one whale, and also have some new clients who have recently come on board.
Is it currently just you?
Yeah, currently just me. Okay. And I get the question a lot, like, are you going to hire somebody? And my current stance has been, I'm going to try to avoid hiring someone as long as possible. And it's very, very difficult to hire somebody for delivery because, they bought me. I mean, the good news is clients really like me. The bad news is they really like me. So to switch them off on somebody else is difficult. The admin side is not burdensome right now. I hate it. I've got a spreadsheet right now that I'm prepping for a client, but it's not a ton of time. So yeah, just me for now.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I'd love to hear the story of how it all started. Take us back.
Oh man. So I'm going to go way back. This is probably further back than you want. I'm going to go back like 20 years. Okay. 20 years. I was working with a consultant who had been brought into our company to help build out what our core values were, what our the core values rollout program was going to be. And then I kind of turned into the inside company lead on that after the consultant went away. And so that was just like one of the first of several engagements over my career where I was the company guy doing training, doing culture development, doing things that consultants get paid to do. And then in 2012, I went back to my first employer, and my job literally was to listen to what consultants had to say, rip off their stuff, and install it back in the office. I went. Was working as
you're the internal resource. You're the reason why they don't buy.
Yeah.
You go, well, I'm gonna have my team do it. You're that guy. Now we all hate you.
Yep, that's me. That's 100% me. And so I got reps that way. I got a ton of reps. And my advice to anybody who's thinking about jumping into consulting is get projects under your belt. I don't care what they are. I don't care if it's coming up with a new logo. I don't care if it's planning an annual meeting. Get reps on running projects, installing new systems, what have you. It's great. And so went to a franchise system. I was the director of the franchise business consulting team. And so that was a group of us that were out there trying to help franchisees grow their business. Pandemic hit. That business got slammed. I reached out to a consultant in the area in August of 2020 and joined their consulting firm. Worked with them, beating up all of my referrals, I was doing cold calling. I was doing like LinkedIn stuff, video messages. I was out there trying to build a business. And I was like, all right, I get it. I've got 25 years of like sales and marketing expertise, right? And I bought, sold advertising, led sales teams, that kind of thing. But I recognize I don't necessarily know what it is to sell and market me as a consultant. Like this is new and different. I need help. And I was looking at the alternatives, and there were alternatives out there, and they're like, "We'll help you automate your connections and messages." And I was like, "Cool. What are we gonna say?" They're like, "Oh, you say whatever you want." I was like, that's why I need the help. I need help on both ends. Like, how do you do this? And then what should I say? How should I position things? And that's what led me to jumping into to meet with you guys.
Now, at the time, you were working with that other consulting firm, yeah?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So take me through, the sequence of events that ultimately led you to going off on your own.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, working with this firm, great little company, and known these guys for years. And we, we were involved. I went through the program with my boss, and it was too uncomfortable for them because they were used to doing many different types of things for many different types of people, and all of that in central Pennsylvania. And the program is obviously very, very uncomfortable for somebody who's in that stance, because you pick a vertical and you just that vertical, and then you pick an offering that's very precise in that vertical, and you do it for anybody. And I was just like, I'm all in. This is my do or die moment. I'm going to make this thing work, or I'm going to die trying. Like there's failure is not an option. I got to make this work. And so I was fortunate. It did work. I was getting super busy. It was a breakup. So there was hurt feelings there. There's no breakup without some hurt feelings. I was like, we were talking about how much support there would be, and we were just like, hey, I think it's just better if we can part ways. And so I was super, super fortunate. There was no non-compete. All 10 of the clients that I was serving came with me. And it was the scariest, most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. If you ride motorcycles, it's like going into a downhill turn at night in the rain into a blind off camber left-hand corner, and you find gravel in the middle of the road. That's what it felt like every day, all day long for a while, as I went out on my own. Super scary thing, totally worth it.
But you had 10 clients. What were you afraid of?
I wanted to keep them. I think the journey as a consultant is like, and you addressed this head on like years ago, but like your head trash comes up quick, and you got to manage your own head trash pretty quick. And so I was just in the mindset, and I was reflecting on this in preparing for our conversation. I was probably in the mindset too long, might even still be in the mindset of like, can I do this? And so I was in the can I do this mode. And I was reflecting last night, like, when am I going to come up with a new question? Because I'm like 3 years deep with some of these clients. And I'm like, when am I going to be like, yep, we proved it. We were just shooting for finish 1 year. We're on to year 3. Need a new question. Then can I do this?
Yeah, and it'll come. But, it sounds like that transition was you were confident that you could do it within the confines of a firm and the partners and whatever structure they had in place there. And it sounds like the question then became, well, now can I do this on my own without anybody?
Yeah. There was I had a good conversation with a guy. This is going to be really key for the audience. When I was contemplating, do I want to go out on my own? I was meeting with a friend who was a mentor of mine, former boss, is in himself a consultant, owner of my wife's company. And I said to him, I said, Greg, how do you know you're ready to go out on your own? And he said something that was you could kind of take it sarcastic, but it was so true. He said, when you're not asking that question, it's like the fact that you're asking a question is kind of like, all right, you're not ready yet. You'll get to a point where you don't ask that question anymore. And then there was a meeting I was having with them where there was just a disconnect. And they showed me some information. I was like, I can't believe you showed me that. But this is the moment where it's like, yeah, this is it. This is the thing that's the proof that we've hit that point. I'm ready to move on. And you just get to this point where like the rewards and the risk move to a place where it's like, this is what I have to do.
So I want to dissect a little bit deeper in terms of what gave you the confidence to make that move. And obviously, well, let me ask you the question.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense that a good chunk of the clients at least were going to come with you?
Yeah, I did.
Helped.
You know, it's funny. The confidence didn't really come until a couple months later. I was doing the wrong math in my head, right? I had these 10 clients, these 10 engagements, and I was like, well, you know, if I can get half of them to stay with me, you know, I'm still going to be up, you know, I'm going to be making way more, right? And then the fear factor is like, what if they all stop spending money tomorrow, right? That's
just all of a sudden,
just all of a sudden, like the sun turns off, right? And like everybody stops.
Here, by the way, Brian.
I mean, it took me a while to figure it out though, because I was like, that's ludicrous. Number one, to let that in as a fear. And you really got to get good at calling your own crap on the head trash. And so I was like, what is a more likely worst case scenario is that maybe a third of them or half of them fizzle out slowly over time. And even if that is the case, we're not in bad shape at all. We're in great shape. So what that was the kind of logic that really got to like, man, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Let's do this thing.
So I'm curious, how much of a role did your confidence in your ability to drive new business play in making this decision?
It's massive. It's massive. It's there all the time. And it's just like knowing that right now is just like, it's just great. It's like, okay, cool. You know, because right now I got two big whales. And let's create some disaster scenario for the whales to go away. You know, cool, great. I still got these other clients, and I've got this thing. It's just like it's like a light switch. I can turn this engine on that just creates the most amazing leads. Like referrals are not actually that great most of the time. They can take a really long time. And this person, you know, although your client's like super enthusiastic about you and they love you and they want to introduce you to their friend doesn't know you. Friend's like, who are you? And we don't even know anywhere if we're a match for each other. You need me. Versus the person who has been stalking you on LinkedIn, feels bad about it, and then calls you up already convinced that you're the guy. Like that's a very different conversation. And you know, I'm looking at like the quality, and I mean it's deep too, because what you're kind of jump starting the trust process, and the relationship quality is incredible. It's just it's incredible. So I mean, I'm friends with my clients. My wife threw a birthday party, and one of the clients was featured in the video, you know, of people wishing me well. And it was incredible privilege and honor. But yeah, relationships, super key. Building trust, super key. And when they jumpstart building their own trust before you even meet, you know, it's like, that's awesome.
So a couple things I want to get into here. So number one is leadership development. You know, from my perspective, red ocean, you know, like, and I tell people this all the time. Like when we get applications from people that are in leadership development, I go, like, we get 10, 15 of you applying to work with us every month.
Yeah.
And y'all look the same for the most part, right? So talk me through how you developed a meaningful differentiator and found a way to stand out in this market?
The day was Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. And I was doing my, I forget what you called it then, but it's called client listening now. I'm working for this consulting firm. We're going through the 98 program. My boss quit. I'm still in it to win it. And calling up some former clients of the consulting firm just to check in, be like, hey, crazy days, this pandemic, how's everything going for you? And then I had this awkward question. I asked 2 different companies. I was like, yeah, and like, how's it going with the team development stuff? And I had 2 guys, both in construction, say the same thing in the same morning. And they said, oh man, our leaders are aging out and retiring. Our next generation leaders are not ready. We do not have a plan. And oh, by the way, our people hate consultants. They hate reading books, and they're not going to sit still in classrooms. And I was just like, here are my people. Here's my plan. Here's my purpose. And it resonated with me at a deep level because I have done blue collar work, and I have always like made it a mission in my life, like from an early age, from like like childhood, to be able to connect well with people in that space, even though I grew up and would be rightfully accused of being upper middle class kid growing up. And so it's just like, man, this is it. Okay, cool. And so I was like, cool. With that in mind, right? What would I, if I got a blank slate, right? What would I build for these people? The best of the best of the best I've ever seen over the course of my career, and tee it up and bank hard on the ability to connect with those folks and to break through the skepticism that I'm going to get. Because at the end of the day, if I went into those companies, I was like, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to get those dudes with all the gauging and the tattoos and the big monster, physiques, ride Harleys. We're going to put them in a room and get them all talking about empathy and emotional intelligence. They'd be like, get out of here. You're not doing that. So that's not, that's not the pitch, right? But that is what we end up doing. And it's amazing. And so how do you make it different? Like, what do you set it apart? It's the hyper relevancy. It's your idea, not mine. It's the this is made specifically for you and to help your folks, because we get the guy. This is what one of the clients said. It's like kind of like we take our best technicians out in the field and we tap them on the shoulder one day and we say, hey, that thing that you're really good at, you're not doing that anymore. You're going to go do this other thing. And we don't really have a manual for that or any, guidance, but we hope you do well at it. Good luck. And they throw them into a leadership position. And that's how it is, in many industries. The difference is that, this group, largely didn't like going to school, didn't read a lot of books, they're usually not really good at articulating themselves verbally and that kind of thing. And so you got to custom your approach. So I just called it the measure twice, cut once approach to leadership development. And that whole thing that resonated with people. And I had people say, oh, so this is really for us. I'm like, yeah.
I want to talk about vertical specialization. And I get a lot of pushback from not only leadership development people. This is true for a lot of different markets, but certainly leadership development people hesitate to pick a lane, pick a vertical. And I'm gonna go ahead, and my disclaimer is I don't believe it's necessary. I think you can get away without vertical specialization in this market and in some other markets. There's a whole bunch of criteria that I need to add to that to be clear about what would make that work. However, I do believe it's a shortcut. Has that been your experience?
Oh, heck yeah. I would even argue with you that it's not necessary. I think it's necessary. I'm like, I would really love to sit down and debate fiercely with the person who says no. You know what I mean? Because number one mindset I'm going to look for is there's probably some sort of scarcity mindset out there. You know what I mean? And the scarcity mindset is going to hold you back. It is. And I had to beat it out of my own head, which is why I know, right? I know I had to beat it out of my own head. And it's astounding what, you know, how much opportunity there is out there. And the relief when you can look in a client's eye and they're like, oh, you really get us. You don't get that without the specialization. And so if you're really torn, could you pick two? Yeah, but it's not as pure as like, and how it's going to feel weird. They better be close. You know what I mean? You can't be like, I'm into construction services and,
Financial
IT.
services.
They're going to be like, no, you're not.
Bankers and welders. That's my thing, right?
It's not going to work. So sorry, I kind of went off on a rant there.
Well, I mean, so and listen, we could debate whether it's possible or advisable. Otherwise, I think it's hard to argue that it's not a shortcut. And if we look at your proposition and the way that you articulate it, I mean, your proposition, the construction focus is central to your proposition. And if you take away construction, you're just another leadership guy.
Yeah.
And that's what's enabled some very specific messaging.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about the program yesterday, and I was like, "Who are your people? Who would you like if you got to work with somebody? Like, what would those people look like?" And this is like, you get to choose. If you really like rubbing shoulders with the tech bros and make that your angle. You like playing with. I love arguing with lawyers, by the way, love it. But like, then go with arguing with lawyers or HR folks or. Well, HR is a horizontal, not a vertical, but it's another interesting topic. But who do you like? And why life is too short to deal with people that you wouldn't want to hang out with otherwise. And that's what I found, like with my clients, are all people that like, want to go hang out? Cool. When and where? Let's go do it.
So you made this comment earlier about how powerful it is when the prospect begins the process of building trust with you before they ever talk to you. And I want to really understand what was the shift that you made in your marketing to make the difference? Because you also mentioned that you were at one point doing lots of things, outreach, video messages. You've got an extensive sales and marketing background. You're not new to the game. And somehow it wasn't working, and then somehow it started working. What was key to making that shift?
I'll give you a story of when I found that like rush to fruition. But I was just doing the program, right? I'm just doing the outreach. I'm trying to do what I can put together as my best possible content, do it frequently, overcome the bit of like it's not perfect, and just get stuff out there and run the program. I'm just doing it, right? And so I get a phone or somebody calls into the firm, right? And so they want to hear pricing on leadership development programs that we're running. And I was like, okay, well, and so the owner of the company I'm working for hands me the lead. He's like, I know you're working on, with construction people. They happen to be a construction firm. Go ahead. Came in through the website type of thing. So I was like, cool. All right. And I'm ticked. Because I'm like, everybody knows my boss. He's so popular in this area, and yet another, referral, unsolicited thing for my boss. Great. So I call him up, and I'm calling to just set an appointment to do discovery. That's it. And the person's like, I got time. Let's talk right now. And we jump right into discovery, and it's deep. And I was just like over the phone, and I'm like finding the pain and irritation. I'm just agitating that pain and irritation, and then it closes out with like, all right, we got to get you in front of the executive team. Let's look at calendars. So we made a date for me to pitch to the 5 or 6 person executive team, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see if this happens, right? I mean, these people, they don't know me, and like this person's just going to get me in a room with them. All right, we'll see what happens. And so I'm like, hey, listen, before we get off the phone, just kind of curious, how'd you hear about my boss? I mean, I know he's written books, he runs groups, he has big events, and I'm just really curious how you found out about him. And she goes, oh no, we don't know him. You reached out via LinkedIn to our COO, and we've been watching what you've been doing online. And I was like, oh, that's what this is about. That's what and I've had other people, they feel like they act like almost guilty. They're like, they feel like they got to get off their chest and we can't move forward unless they let me know, like, just, we've been watching you online and just been taking a look at your stuff. I was like, perfect. That's why it's all there. You take all the time you need. It's fun though.
So you became the draw.
Yeah, I don't like saying it that way. I think what it is I became the guy in the desert with the fresh, cool water. That's what they're in pain. They're suffering. And they see that there's hope. And then they're skeptical, and they over a series of events convince themselves that my water is the solution to their problem. And and I don't even know their name yet.
So there's a handful of things that had to go well to engineer that kind of a result, which I know you then, pretty consistently were able to engineer on the back of that. Number one is you've got to have good positioning and messaging, which you worked on and developed. Number two, you've got to bring people into your network, which you did. Mm-hmm. And, but dare I say, perhaps the hardest part, therefore, is putting yourself out there and publishing relevant, credible, interesting insights for the marketplace on a consistent basis, because that's what they consumed in order to come to the conclusion that we should give this guy a call and get some pricing.
Yeah.
What I don't even know where to start here. There's a lot we can get into, but I'm curious, did you struggle with that in the beginning?
I think I struggled with, well, first of all, before we go any further, the team helped a lot with the tuning of the message and stuff. And I was very much following a playbook that your team laid out. You know what I mean?
You're talking about my team. Okay, got it. All right.
Your team, right? Yeah. And so I'm doing what I told. And I remember putting in the Slack, I don't care what he tells me to do next. If it's dress up in a chicken suit, run around my yard, it's going to work. So I'm doing it. But
I literally remember, I think it was Margie, one of the coaches. We got on a meeting and she goes, yeah, one of our clients just said, I'll dress up in a chicken suit if Ahmed tells me to. And I was like, I don't want him to do that. I remember that meeting vividly. I'm like, please tell him that's not what I want from him. To be clear.
To be sure. Like the point is that we were doing things that were uncomfortable. And this is to your point. Was it no, it was highly uncomfortable. And we did it anyways. And you get better with reps. And the funny thing is, you get so worried about looking bad, and there's not a lot of people that are going to see your first posts. By the time you get enough reps where like you get good at it, so just start, I think is key thing number one. Number two, freaking have some enthusiasm. You know what I mean? I like, golly, be somebody worth talking to. Just the basics of tone, speed, variation in your voice. I mean, just get some of those mechanics down a little bit. There's really good technology to make it visually interesting. But I think the other thing is like, I don't know what you think about this. I think there's a certain level of like, you got to be obsessed. You have to be obsessed with your craft. Mm-hmm. You have to be just constantly consuming various various inputs from your space, so you can pull like those little nuggets, those little pearls out of the vast like seas of stuff that you're plowing through, and just be able to give your audience the best, most useful nuggets. I mean, I forget who said it, but like the idea of be helpful, be useful. If that's your goal and you stay focused on that and be like obsessed about your space and ways to be helpful and useful in that space, I think those are the keys. Follow the program, be enthusiastic, and then be obsessed.
Well, and I think that be interesting is a really important point. And I almost hesitate to say that, but you're spot on, right? Like if you are just not interesting to talk to. And if I'm just not getting much out of you in terms of value, slapping on a camera on you ain't going to amplify anything. Right.
Yeah.
And so there is an element to that. Like, you've got to be interesting. You've got to be engaging. But frankly, that's part of being a good consultant. And you have to be, to your point, obsessed about results and solutions and problem solving. You've got to be obsessed about your client's problem and finding new, innovative, insightful ways to approach that. And if you're not, that's going to show, and your content will do very little for you, I imagine.
Yeah. And looking for that angle. I think being in sales and marketing for a while probably gave me a leg up in terms of how to use words and stuff, and just being in my DNA a jerk. I know how to be provocative. And so I remember one of my posts, which got a ton of visibility, is I was just provoking, I was pushing on like this idea about the golden rule. And it was like, the golden rule is horrible for business and leadership. And that could just, it's a scroll stopper idea. But that's where I'm like, when you get in the gear where you've just got a list of like ideas for content, and that list never leaves your side, and you're constantly looking for things. Like I remember one of your last podcasts, you mentioned the what was that book?
Psycho-cybernetics.
Yeah, that one. And another guy in your backyard, Jordan Peterson, I think, is the guy who's quoted with the same idea of like, you see what you aim at. You know what I mean? You see what you're aiming at. And so if I'm aiming for freaking awesome content, and that's all I'm looking for all the time, that's what I'm going to end up seeing a lot of. And I think that's a key part to the obsession.
So last question on this topic.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with the ideas? What was the raw material for the ideas?
So my suggestion is to curate a handful of known sources in your field. Okay. So for me, Patrick Lencioni is absolutely, like, if I had to choose one and only one author and run my business with his stuff alone, Patrick would be it. Oh, by the way, side note, if you're thinking about going into consulting, you absolutely must drop everything, get the book, Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni. I read that and I was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Another one is, you got to find good, like Jocko, for me, right? Jocko Willink was a great podcast. Okay. Tough dude, tough Navy SEAL, right? Resonates with my audience. Okay. I'm also fascinated with what he's got, but this dude has like guest after guest after guest on. Okay. And so, Andrew Huberman is a great example. He was just on again recently, but now I'm able to connect. Okay, let me go look at Andrew Huberman's stuff. Let me find some of his thing. And like, literally, it was a 3.5 hour podcast, but there was one concept in it. I'm going to botch the name of it, but it's something like variable intermittent reward. It's fundamental to how humans are motivated. And I can put that into a 90-second clip. So is that a good return on? That's what you're doing, right? 3.5 hours to get the idea for a 90-second clip. Now, in truth, I got more than that out of that podcast. Was another source. Well, and if I'm being honest, 100% clients. Like one of my longstanding clients is like, have you read this book? And I was like, no, I haven't. It's now my favorite book. It's Your Ship by Captain Abrashoff. Absolutely best. Like, overall, if I only get to read one book on business and leadership, what do I read? That's my go-to record. I didn't know that book. My client had read it before I had. And so that kind of, anybody who recommends anything, it goes on the reading list. I go check it out.
Here's one of two of my parting questions here, Brian, to bring this home.
Yeah.
What do you wish you had known in the early days when you were building this?
Oh, yeah. Don't be so afraid. I mean, the fear is a killer. And your limbic system does not want you to take risks and it's going to give you all the reasons why you shouldn't take risks. And just get a handle on that crap earlier. So yeah, I wish I had known that about the process. I'm still struggling with it, but like you get better. And the other, well, I'll give you two things. You know, I was pitching something I hadn't put together yet, right? At the beginning of this. And so I was going for like the, you want to invest in your leaders so you can build engagement. You want to build engagement so you can have a good culture, and have a good culture so you can make more money. You know what I mean? That's fundamentally like the case for it. And then I started getting comments from people in the program, and they're like, this stuff is helping me become a better person. This is helping our team communicate different. This is helping us think different. And if I got to do it over again, I'd probably go back and readjust my pricing after I got those comments to be like, time out. You can get a book, okay, but is the book going to get your people to become better people, to think different, to communicate different? Can you imagine what would your business look like if your leaders did those three things? Let's have that conversation. So if I got to rewind time and do it again, I'd do that.
Yeah. And you have the benefit now of experience where you've seen those outcomes come to fruition, and you didn't know in the early days. Right. So, the way you're talking now is the product of just having done a few reps of, more than a few reps of people coming through it and seeing the results of that, which is, brilliance where you are. Here's where I want to wrap this up here, Brian. Mm-hmm. What's next? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, I think I want to, I was just listening to, if listeners haven't listened to it, the goals, are your goals big enough? That really got in my head. We've had this conversation, before about my goals. And so what's next is like, I'm really going to go into the gear of like, okay, let's get out of this. Can I do this? Okay, it's not a good question to like mindset to be in. We need a new mindset. So I think I'm going to look at a new mindset. The other thing I was just challenging is that one of the early questions, right, is it's just me. And so when everybody is asking you the same question, and you've got like like you haven't thought about answer of like, no, never hiring anybody. Maybe it's time to rethink that question, or maybe it's time to rethink that answer. So I think that's what's next. And, just continue loving your clients and doing everything you can to serve them really, really well.
Well, I look forward to having that conversation with you. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show and share your story.
Thank you. Thanks so much.